Hi all, it's day 4 of the Chessable Masters today with Group B playing to its conclusion. The standings after the first 5 rounds played 2 days ago, they are as follows. We have Maxime Vacher-Lagrave and Anish Giri in the lead with 3 points, followed by Fabiano Caruana, Ding Liren and Ian Nepomniachtchi with 2.5 points, and Timur Rajabov with 1.5 points out of 5. So the first 4 they qualify for the knockout stages, and as the standings are right now, that would mean Nepomniachtchi and Rajabov would be eliminated. So it's game time for them, and the question is, can they deliver the goods? So in round 6, all games were drawn, but there was a lot of action in round 7, and I will show you a game between Jan Nepomniachtchi with the white pieces and Fabiano Caruana with the black pieces. The time control is 50 minutes with a 10-second per move increment, and yeah, let's head into the game. So, Nepomniachtchi opens with e4. We have e5, knight to f3, knight to c6, and bishop to b5, the Ruy Lopez. We have a6, kicking the bishop back, bishop e4, a4, and now knight to f6. We have castles by white, and this is the Morphy defense. And I just want to see in the game, Karana played bishop c5, but I just want to show you what happens if you take the pawn on e4, because I think it's a very interesting variation. If you take in d4, white will play d4, and if you decide to be greedy here as black and you take the pawn, then you get rook to e1, and after d5 and knight takes d4, then suddenly you have a double attack on the c6 square, and also your knight here is pinned, so there's threatening of just winning the piece with f3. So if you decide not to take the pawn, but play something like b4 first, bishop b3, and now you decide to take the pawn, then you run into rook e1 as well, and after d5, now white has a um, the great move knight to c3, which attacks this pawn like this, but also attacks the knight twice. So if you take here, then white has bishop takes d5, and this attacks both knights, and you have to defend one of them. And after bishop takes e4, um, black seems to be in a lot of trouble. There we have this open file. White is in a much better position here. So you cannot really take the pawn on d4 here as well. So you have to play something like d5. And now after d takes e5, the position is equal in material, and it's also equal in position. Black can maybe play bishop e6, bishop e3, etc., etc. So I think it's a very cool variation. So yeah, let's get back into the game. So Karana didn't take on e4 but played bishop to c5. We got c3 by white. If you decide to capture it now, you just run into the same pattern, so it's no use to do that. So if castles by black, and now when the king is into safety, now perhaps you have an option to take. But white plays d4, bishop retreats to b6, and now bishop g5, just pinning the knight so it cannot actually take the pawn. Rook of h6 now by Caruana, and bishop to h4. d6, defending the e5 pawn, and now h3 by Nepomniachtchi. And now Caruana played g5, and this is a critical moment in the game. So if you decide to retreat the bishop to g3, then this pawn is actually just up for grabs. There's just nothing white can do, and black is actually in a big advantage here. So you cannot afford that. So the only way to prevent is actually to take on g5, and this is what Nepomniachtchi played. So we have h takes, bishop takes, and now king to h7. We have bishop takes c6, we have rook g8, if you take the bishop here, then white has to trick d takes e5, and after takes, you exchange the queens, and actually you take the knight here. You win your piece back, and you're in a much better position, and also you're 2 pawns up. So this is a winning endgame for white. So you cannot retake. So Caruana actually played rook to g8, attacking the bishop. And now Nepomniachtchi played f4. There's captures on c6, and now you can capture the bishop because the knight, the pawn is now pinned because the f pawn moved, so you cannot take on d5 here. And we have queen to e1, and you have to be very careful here as black. If you play maybe a slow move, maybe a developing move, like for example bishop e6, you actually get checkmated after queen to h4, king to g7, and queen to h6 is checkmate. So you have to be very careful, and in fact, there's not a good way to defend against this except by giving up the exchange, and that is what Caruana did. So he took on g5, we have f takes g5, and now you're gonna even lose more material because the knight has to retreat, and then the f pawn is up for grabs. So the knight goes to g8, just defending the f6 and h6 square, but now rook takes f7 with king g6, and now rook retreats to f3. We have e takes d4, and recapturing would be a big mistake. Let me just quickly show it, because you will recapture with check, and after you move the king, you capture on b2, and you will actually win a full rook here. So that is not the way to go. So after black takes d4, Nepomniachtchi played king to h1, and now we have queen to e7. We have if, for example, you cannot capture the pawn here because of rook to g3 will win the queen. So yeah, so queen to e7. We got knight to d2 just developing, and now takes on c3 and takes on c3. We have bishop to e6. Black has finished developing, but yeah, well, I say finished, but the knight is back on g8 again. We have queen to h4, and yeah, the position just looks very threatening for white here. For black here, I should say. White has these two files. The king is just in the middle of nowhere. This knight is defending it as best as he can, but the position is very awkward for black indeed. So Caruana tries to play queen to h7, maybe exchange the queens, but Nepomniachtchi is of course not interested and plays queen to g3. We have queen to h5 now, threatening to just take the pawn, but now queen to f4, and now you cannot take because of rook to g3, again pinning the queen and winning it. We have king to g7, and now rook a to f1, just tripling up on this file, and now we have rook to e8. We have queen to g3 now, making room for the rooks to go to f6, and knight to e7. We have rook to f6 as mentioned, now attacking the bishop, and with knight to g6. So Caruana managed to maneuver his knight into a bit better position, and yeah, let's see if this works out for him. Maybe it can even go to e5. So we have knight to f3. So no chance now to do this. If you go here, you would just be destroyed because of this, and now this is pinned. You have a discover attack here, so there's no way to play the knight further to e5. So Caruana played bishop to c4, this attacking the rook, rook to e1, defending the pawn, and now bishop to a2, just grabbing a pawn. We have knight to d4 now, with the threat of knight to f5. And we have bishop takes d4, eliminating this potentially dangerous knight. We have c takes d4, And now bishop goes back to help with the defense. With e5, Nepomniachtchi is continuing his attack. And now bishop to d5. Now that the e4 pawn is gone, Caruana thinks, okay, then I'm gonna have this nice diagonal, and yeah, who knows, if this queen ever moves, I can maybe take on h3. So maybe there's some counterplay here. So immediately Nepomniachtchi plays king to h2, just no shenanigans in the spin. And we have a5 now by Caruana, trying to push his pawn. We have rook to e3, a nice rook lift. And we have d takes e5. We have takes on e5. And now queen to d1. And in fact, it was this move that completely blundered the game for Caruana. So, can you spot the winning move sequence for white? And I'll give you a couple of seconds. So, Nepomniachtchi played e6. Yes, and now the f6, f7 square is available for the rook. Caruana tries to defend it with rook to e7, but now queen to f2, again doubling up on this f7 square. We have knight to h8 defending the square, and now rook to h6. And it was in fact in this position that Caruana resigned the game. The threat of white is obvious. Queen to f6 would check, king moves to g8, and rook h8 will be checkmate. So the only way to defend this will be queen to d4. But then white will play queen to f6 anyway, and after you take and take back, you'll take the rook on h6, and after f takes e7, this pawn will promote no matter what, and white will be completely winning. So this was the game. I hope you enjoyed it as much as I do. I thought it was a fantastic game. I think Nepomniachtchi showed true heart by going on the attack, knowing he has to win, and he delivered. He just delivered. So if you liked it, please do comment, like, and subscribe. It really helps me to grow my channel, and I hope to see you in the next video with some more Chessable Masters. Bye for now.